So who wouldn't want to retire at a young age? Am I right? Well, my name is Marcus. This is Discover Ignite, where we discover possibilities and ignite change. And today I'm sharing another book with you guys. In this particular book, I'm guaranteeing you're going to want to stick to the whole book review, because this book was probably one of the best books I have ever read on finance. And the book I'm actually reviewing today is a book called How to Quit Like a Millionaire. So let's get started. I know, you're saying, Marcus, you read a lot of these millionaire books and what is going on? But there's good reason for it, because these books, right, they essentially just have these flashy titles about becoming a millionaire and all these other things just to grab your attention. But this book has some great knowledge in it, because it essentially takes an average Joe and allows you to realize that by making these little small changes and being consistent, that you can essentially retire at a young age. And it's possible as long as you are consistent and you stick to your plan. And this book proves it. It's essentially about this woman, right, and her husband who are on this journey to retire early. Now she had grown up overseas. You know, I think her family was living off of something like 40 cents a week or something like that. It was something absurd, right? Like they weren't making any money, and it's essentially her family, how they moved to Canada, and essentially how her father was making all this money. And so she went essentially from poverty to her father actually having money, and how it affected her, and how so much as a small Coke can, or drinking that Coke can, that she thoroughly enjoyed just that Coke, because it was so hard to pay for a Coke can that, you know, when she had a Coke, she thoroughly essentially was all about that Coke can and drank and enjoyed every little sip of that Coke and wouldn't let it go to waste, and essentially actually had that Coke can for weeks after the fact, because that's how much she was affected by poverty, and realizing that one Coke can meant so much to her. It was such a big change in her life. And then, you know, she ends up growing up, and it's essentially her story about how, you know, she fights from coming from poverty into becoming an engineer, but that's not what she wants. She wants to do more. She wants to essentially live life on her terms, so she tries to retire early. And so she sets out on this plan on how she does that, and then she breaks everything down, what she does exactly to get to where she is today. And today she travels the world. She doesn't own any real estate as far as I'm aware. In the book she said she never actually bought a house. She didn't fall into that trap of buying a house. Now, I myself, you know, I believe specific things about certain things, but nonetheless, I mean, this is her perspective, right, on becoming a millionaire. And so she ends up, you know, traveling the world, and that's what she does today. And she travels around the world so cheaply, but she does it in all these strategical ways that, you know, she's not only saving money, but she's also making a lot of money, because she essentially puts her money to work. And I think that's one of the best things about this book, is she really goes into how she did it. She gives you almost her exact plan on how she does everything, from how she got involved in the stock market and how she was saving monies, and she breaks it down into this triangle, right, about the three different ways you can make money. You can either be that entrepreneur, you can be an investor, or you can be essentially like a scrapper, right? Someone that's a saver and going to save your money and really watch where every dime is going through. And that's how she relates to herself, that's what she was a saver, and she watched where her money went, and now she is a millionaire. And now she's essentially traveling the world, writing books, doing what she really wanted to. And one of the biggest points I got out of this book, which I really liked, was to, you know, follow those things that are going to make you money first. In her example was she became an engineer. She didn't want to become an engineer, but she did it anyway for the money, for the paycheck, because she came from poverty. She felt like she had to do something to prove herself that her dad, you know, moving to Canada was for the right reason. So she had a better upbringing, essentially, to get herself out of poverty and be at better levels than what he was. And so changing that aspect and moving away from that, right? And she talks about everything about how her family interacted with her. You know, she became a software engineer, she saved all this money for 10 years, and they finally realized that, hey, we can retire, right? We are millionaires now we can do what we want. And they had this whole plan set up, and it's very strategic on how she does it. And she goes in detail about, you know, what she bought, what stocks she bought, what she does, how she essentially develops her portfolio in a way that every year, right, if stock market's taking a hit, she essentially will still make out because she has other different funds in which are gaining money. So she has this whole strategic, it's an amazing plan. Like, there's no way essentially to describe it. Like, she really thought everything through before she actually did it. And that's what makes this book like just so intriguing, because you really get caught in the details about how she's planning all these things. And again, it starts out from when she was young and how she was raised and everything, living in that poor state. And then, you know, she throws out different facts and stuff about what's going on during that time period, and she moves on to the next where she becomes an engineer. And her whole thought process through that, her family's thought process, which I thought was really interesting, right? Because especially if your family has only known poverty, it's hard to essentially go a different direction because they're not going to believe it's going to work, right? They don't want you to go backwards because they work so hard to go forward. So again, her story was phenomenal. This book is phenomenal. Who would I recommend it to? I would recommend it to everybody, because I think, again, finances is one of those things that everybody should really teach yourself. And that's another good point. There's so many good points from this book, but there's another good point in this book, which she mentions, you know, you don't need someone to manage your money. You don't need to pay someone to do that. And it's not the first time I've heard, not just her talk about this, but I've heard this, you know, across multiple platforms, books and readings and videos. You lose a ton of money when someone manages your money. They charge you, right? They got an end goal in mind, right? Is to make money off your money. So they'll offer you things to essentially get better commissions off your money, where you can essentially be losing over 100K plus on a 401k over, you know, 30 some years, 40 years, or you can save that money and manage it yourself by a lot of the simple methods that she uses within this book, which is amazing. And she proved that. And now she's, again, a millionaire, and she's traveling the world. She does whatever she wants. Now she's writing books, because when she was young, she wanted to write a book. And then when she retired, she's like, you know what? I guess I should probably write that book now. So as for like any cons to this book, right? There's got to be some cons to this book. And I know I always talk about how, you know, I cannot find cons. And this is, again, one of those books I could not find cons in it. This is one of those books I picked up kind of randomly, right? I saw the title, I was like, I'll give it a shot, you know? And I picked it up and I read it all the way through. It was one of those books I didn't want to put down, right? Because it was so good. Like, telling her, going along in her story and telling you what was going on at that particular time period, what she was doing exactly, you know, what her thought process was, how she was planning this out. It was just so good and so intriguing, and how she managed to do it. And she gets, you know, detailed but not too detailed where she loses you, right? So I had absolutely no cons of this book. This book was absolutely phenomenal, and especially for a lot of the books that I go through, it's hard to find a book that's like that you can really be like, man, I didn't really skip a beat, right? And that's exactly what this book was. And so if you're actually interested on getting this book, I will leave it down in the description below. If you did enjoy this video, remember to like on the way out. Till next time, I will see you guys later.